If you turn with me to the Old Testament book of Judges, Judges chapter 6, verses 11 through 17. Judges chapter 6, verses 11 through 17. Please stand to acknowledge the validity and sovereignty of God's holy word. And if you don't have a Bible, I would encourage you this morning to share with someone, or please look at the screen because you don't want to miss this. Verse 11 of the text: the angel of the Lord came and sat down under the oak in Ophrah that belonged to Joash the Abiezrite, where his son Gideon was threshing wheat in a winepress to keep it from the Midianites. When the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon, he said, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." Verse 13, "Pardon me, my Lord," Gideon replied, "but if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us? Where are all the wonders that our ancestors told us about when they said, 'Did not the Lord bring us up out of Egypt?' But now the Lord has abandoned us and given us into the hand of Midian." The Lord turned to him and said, "Go in the strength you have and save Israel out of Midian's hand. Am I not sending you?" "Pardon me, my Lord," Gideon replied, but how can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my family. The Lord answered, "I will be with you, and you will strike down all the Midianites, leaving none alive." Gideon replied, "If now I have found favor in your eyes, give me a sign that it is you who is really talking to me. Please do not go away until I come back and bring my offering and set it before you." I want to capitalize on verse 17 of this text. I want to put some special emphasis on verse 17 of this text. If now I have found favor in your eyes, give me a sign that it is you that is really talking to me. You may be seated. This morning, for just a few moments, I simply want to tag this text, "One more sign." One more sign. Will you turn to your neighbor this morning and say, "Neighbor, what I really need is just one more sign." The ability to comprehend signs and symbols is a necessity for navigating life's daily routines and commutes. A sign is any physical form that has been imagined or made externally through some physical medium to stand for an object, event, or a feeling. Keon Leon Kim, author of Caged in Our Own Signs, a book about semiotics, made the preeminent observation that to live in a world without signs would be inconceivable. He says, "We live in a world full of signs. Whatever our eyes take in is pervaded by signs, ranging from traffic signs to the constellation of stars in the night sky, from the silhouette of a mother's image in our dreams to the 7 color bands of the rainbow. Conceiving of a world without signs is impossible. And no matter where we venture or roam, there are signs. On the freeway, in the airport, at the bus stop, in the hospital, in the zoo, in the library, in the grocery store, at the pool, in the restaurant, at the mall, at the AMC movie theater, music hall, and city hall. There are signs. And every day we encounter directional messages and signs that indicate, dictate, inform, or forewarn us with instructions on how we should proceed beyond a particular physical, geographic, circumstantial, or contextual location. These directional messages provide immediate instructions to prepare us for how to react or proceed beyond a designated locale or position. And without these critical markers, signs, or symbols, we would be often lost, stranded, bewildered, disoriented, dislocated, mystified, perplexed, and dumbfounded. These signs and symbols let us know if we're headed in the right direction or if we need to turn around or if we're headed in the wrong direction. They warn us of impending danger and detours. They inform us if we need to proceed with caution or maintain our regular speed. They advise us of what we should press if we want to go up or we want to go down. They communicate to us if we need to make a complete stop or simply yield. They dictate whether the road is passable or it's under construction. They indicate to us whether a parking space is open or reserved. There are stop signs, yield signs, pedestrian crossing signs, railroad signs, one-way signs, divided highway signs, no parking signs, handicap accessible signs, no smoking signs, men's bathroom signs, women's bathroom signs, recycle cans only signs, and menu signs. And though many of us can read and interpret the meaning of the signs we see, we still end up in the wrong place, or we just blatantly do the opposite of what the signs are instructing us to do. And I can't even perpetrate or front this morning. I'm guilty of it myself, because sometimes when I'm supposed to turn right, I turn left. And instead of coming to a complete stop at the stop sign, as the Ohio driving law indicates, sometimes I'm in a hurry to get to my destination, and when I can't readily see the police officer or the highway patrolman, I do my lean back, and then I roll on through the stop sign without stopping. And for every instruction a sign gives that we break, there is a legal consequence. And just as there are man-made signs that instruct us on how to operate and get to our daily and practical destinations safely and securely, God gives us some spiritual signs to instruct us on how to proceed on our journey to our destiny. And that's why the renowned gospel writer and songwriter Doris Akers penned the words to the soul-stirring hymn, Lead me, guide me along the way. For if you lead me, I cannot stray. Lord, let me walk each day with thee. Lord, lead me. Lord, guide me. I am lost if you take your hand from me. I am blind without thy light to see. Lord, just always let thy servant be. Lord, lead me, oh, lead me. The contemporary gospel writer, artist Norman Hutchins put it this way. He said, I feel a breakthrough coming your way. It's a mighty move of God. It's going to change your day with signs and wonders, miracles to perform. God is going to bless you if you keep holding on. Is there anybody in this place today that can say, I've got a made up mind that I'm going to follow God's signs and God's direction in my life? I'm not going to turn to the left and I'm not going to turn to the right, but I'm going to follow the signs of God in my life. Is there anybody in this building today that can say, I'm ready to follow God's signs? And if we just rewind the DVR, fast forward the DVD, revisit our timeline on Facebook, revisit some past chapters, reread the text message, and remember the last tweet. If we turn to the last channel and relive the last episode, it shouldn't take us long to recognize the signs of God that have been manifested in every season of our life. And throughout the biblical text, God has a track record of displaying and demonstrating signs and wonders that reveal divine instruction to his people. In the Old Testament, God demonstrates signs to manifest his power, because in Joshua chapter 10, verse 12 through 1, the sun stood still at Joshua's command. In Exodus chapter 17, verse 5, water flowed from a rock when Moses struck it. In Exodus chapter 14, verse 22, the Red Sea parted so that God's people could cross. In 2 Kings chapter 6, verses 5 through 6, an iron axe floated on water. In the New Testament, Jesus performs miracles as signs of his divinity. Because in John chapter 2, verses 1 through 11, Jesus changes water into wine at the party when the wine ran out. Jesus walks on water. In Matthew chapter 16, verses 8 through 10, Jesus feeds 5,000 folks with a boy's little happy meal. In Mark chapter 8, verses 22 through 26, Jesus heals a blind man at Bethesda. In Matthew chapter 9, verses 18 through 26, Jesus heals Jairus' daughter. And if God manifested signs of favor, foresight, and provision back then, if we just wait and see and look around, God is manifesting some signs in our life right now. You just got to take those glasses off so you can see the signs of God in your life. Is there anybody in this building today that can say, I'm ready to see and respond to the signs of God in my life? As we further engage our text, Judges chapter 6, verses 11 through 17. I hope you still have your Bibles open. The context of the text reveals, through the prophetic authorship of Samuel, the reality saga of God's chosen people, Israel, who had fallen from victory to the valley. Judges contains the history of the biblical judges, Othniel, Ehud, Deborah, Gideon, Abimelech, Jephthah, and Samson, who were divinely inspired leaders whose direct knowledge of Yahweh allows them to act as superheroes for the Israelites to lead them out of bondage. I'm just painting the context. The victory and prosperity of Israel experienced in Joshua didn't show up in Judges, because Israel was living a cycle of 350 years of sin, bondage, and repentance. And Judges reveals the failure of Israel to conquer their enemies and claim their inheritance because they refused to obey God's divine and prophetic text messages. They lived in defeat and anguish for a season. That's why Judges chapter 2, verses 18 through 19 records, wherever the Lord raised up a judge for them, he was with the judge and saved them out of the hands of their enemies, as long as the judge lived. For the Lord had compassion on them as they groaned under those who oppressed and afflicted them. But how many know today that even if your current chapter seems to be documented with paragraphs of discouragement, disillusionment, defeat, and discomfort, if you just remember the last chapter and how God brought you out, it's just another sign that God won't leave you hanging now. And I'm so glad that when I look back over my life and when I rewind the DVD, I can see how God's hand has been all over my life. And if I just check it out, even if my current chapter seems bleak, my last chapter is just a current sign for my deliverance, my healing, my blessing, and my prosperity. So I'm not going to get discouraged about my now. I can just look at my last chapter and see how he brought me over. Judges chapter 6, verses 11 through 18 reveals that Gideon, a wheat farmer and military leader of just 300, whose name in Hebrew literally means destroyer, mighty warrior. He was Israel's sign that their reality episode of defeat was over. Because in Judges chapter 6, verses 11 through 18, it provides some critical kingdom principles as to why we need one more sign. We need one more sign to reassure us of God's presence. We need one more sign to, number one, reassure us of God's presence. And verse 12 of the text says, when the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon, he said, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." This word of affirmation and confirmation that was spoken over Gideon by the angel let Gideon know that the presence of God would encompass him as he led the Israelites to conquer the Midianites. And every now and then we just need a direct word from God. reaffirming God's presence and dominion over every trial, battle, conflict, and test in our lives. We need to know that God is omniscient, that he has infinite knowledge. We need to know that God is omnipresent. He's everywhere at all times. We need to know that God is omnipotent. He's got all power in his hands. And when the bills seem to be more visible than the provision of God's presence, we've got to remember the testimony of the psalmist. I was young and now I'm old, yet have I seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. When our misery appears to outweigh the presence of God's joy, we've got to remember the prayer of the psalmist, who reminds us, restore to me the joy of your salvation, and grant me a willing spirit to sustain me. When our foes outweigh our friends, we must listen to the track on our spiritual iPod that plays, the Lord is my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear? We've got to trust God even when we can't trace God. Prolific poet Mary Stevenson, in 1940, in her poem, Footprints, reminds us that God's footprints in our life remind us of his presence. And she says, one night I dreamed I was walking along the beach with the Lord. Many scenes from my life flashed across the sky. In each scene I noticed footprints in the sand. And sometimes there were two sets of footprints, and other times there was only one set of footprints. And this bothered me, she says, because I noticed that during the low periods of my life, when I was suffering from anguish, sorrow, or defeat, I could see only one set of footprints. So I said, Lord, you promised me. Lord, you promised me that if I followed you, you would walk with me always. But I've noticed that during the most trying times of my life, there was been only one set of footprints in the sand. And I said, why, when I needed you the most, God, have you not been there for me? And the Lord replied, the years when you've seen only one set of footprints, help me shout this thing, my child, I was carrying you. And I'm so glad that when I was down on the ground, when I was defeated and messed up, God picked me up and he carried me. Is there anybody in this building today that's got a testimony that God picked them up, picked them out of their misery, picked them up out of their defeat, picked them up out of their sorrow, and carried them to their destiny? Is there anybody that can just give God a crazy praise in this place right now and say, he carried me, he watched over me, he took care of me, and for that I just give him praise in this place today? I only need one set of footprints, because if my footprints were in the sand, I would have fallen down and collapsed in the race. I just need one set of footprints. That's my sign to keep running my race. Our problems shouldn't cause us to doubt or dismiss the presence of God in our life. Secondly, we just need one more sign to reaffirm our purpose. Everybody say, I just need one more sign to reaffirm my purpose. Friedrich Nietzsche made the imperative observation that he who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. Let me say that again. I want that to seep in. I want you to download that. He who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. Sometimes on our faith journey, we become distracted about God's ultimate intention and goal for our life. Not only do we derail ourselves from our destiny, but we begin to question if God is still with us. And Gideon found himself succumbing to the enemy's trick of doubting if God was still with him as he prepared to deliver Israel from the Midianites. Let's check out the text. Verse 13 says, "Pardon me, my Lord," Gideon replied, "but if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us?" That does not sound like the Israelites when they were coming out of Egypt. Where are all the wonders that our ancestors told us about when they said, "Did not the Lord bring us up out of Egypt?" But now the Lord has abandoned us and given us into the hand of Midian. And verse 14 reaffirms that God doesn't promote who he won't protect. The Lord turned to him and said, "Go in the strength you have," I love that, "and save Israel out of Midian's hand." And God says, am I not sending you? Am I not sending you, the Lord of hosts? If I'm sending you, don't worry about who's in front of you, who's behind you, who's to the left of you, who's to the right. If I'm sending you, walk in the authority that I've given you. The "go" in verse 14 of the text simply means God's orders. God wasn't concerned about Gideon's status or the fact that he was the weakest of his family, the least likely to succeed, yet God said, "Go." And I'm reminded of a story. It talks about a young girl. It says, many voices shout to us every day, distracting us and seek to dictate our purpose. We hear so many words every single day that seek to distract us from our purpose in God. I'm reminded of a story about a young woman who was concerned about this issue. And she went to her pastor and asked her pastor to help her in resolving the question of her purpose. And especially when it seemed that her desires contradicted the will of God. And the pastor took out a slip of paper and he wrote on it, and he folded that sheet of paper in half, and he handed it to the girl and asked her to go to the sanctuary to read the paper and ponder the words for at least 10 minutes. Then cross out one of the two words and bring the paper back. And when she opened the paper, after sitting in the sanctuary, she saw the words, "No" and "Lord." And I just want to stop by today and ask you, when God is in your presence, are you going to circle "no"? Or are you going to circle "Lord"? Because if we're going to understand our purpose in God, we must always cross out "no" and circle "Lord." Because in God, we can find God's will and God's purpose for our life. And God is commanding someone in this place today to go pursue your peace. God is commanding someone in this building today to go and pursue that business. God is commanding someone in this place today to go and pursue your joy that has been taken from you. God is commanding someone in this building today to go and save your family or go and get your family. God is commanding someone in this place to go and get his promise. God is commanding someone in this building to go and pursue your healing. God is commanding someone in this place to go and get your deliverance, because as long as you stay in the same place, as long as you have a backwards mindset, as long as you allow the enemy to trick you and tell you that you're nothing, that you can't make it, you'll never find your purpose in God. And I don't know about you today, but I'm going to get my purpose. I'm going to understand God's will for my life so I can reach my destiny in him. And if you don't hear anything else I say today, First Church, you've got to get one more sign to understand God's purpose for your life. Is there anybody in this building today that can say, come hell or high water, I'm going to get my purpose. I'm going to understand God's purpose for my life. Lastly, what we need is one more sign to reposition us for our victory. We need one more sign to reposition us for our victory.
C.S. Lewis, the prolific author of Mere Christianity, made the observation that God, who foresaw your tribulation, has specially armed you to go through it, not without pain, but without stain. I'm reminded of a story about a little girl walking in a garden and noticed a particularly beautiful flower. She admired its beauty and enjoyed its fragrance. And she said, "This flower is so pretty." And as she gazed on this flower, she was walking through the garden. Her eyes followed the stem down to the soil in which it grew. "This flower is too pretty to be planted in such dirt," she cried. So she pulled it up by its roots and ran to the water faucet to wash away the soil. And it wasn't long until the flower wilted and died. And when the gardener saw that the little girl had done, he exclaimed, "You have destroyed my finest plant." "I'm sorry, but I didn't like it in that dirt," the girl said. The gardener replied, "I chose that spot and mixed the soil because I knew that that was the only place it could grow into a beautiful flower." And often we murmur about the circumstances in our life, but God is just planting us in a place where we can grow into our potential and our destiny. And even though the dirt around us seems to have us bound and defeated, even though the dirt around us seems to have us buried down in defeat, just look around at the soil. God is just repositioning you. God is just repositioning you. God is just repositioning you. God is just repositioning you for your victory. Is there anybody in this building today that can say, even though it seems like my life has been in a tailspin, God is just repositioning me for my victory? Is there anybody in this building today that can say, I'm glad that the dirt that I'm in, God can still use the dirt that I'm in to reposition me for my victory? One more thing and I'm almost through. In verse 17 of the text, God gave Gideon a declaration of assurance and final victory when he told Gideon, I will be with you. I will strike down all the Midianites, leaving none alive. And that's a word for me today because God revised a potential story of defeat and despair, and he penned a story of triumph. And it doesn't matter if you have an army of 500 or 5,000. When God is with you, when his presence is surrounding you, when his resources are restoring you, when his provision is protecting you, when his dominion is directing you, when his word is encouraging you, when your victory is in the vicinity. Somebody ought to shout right now because your victory is in the vicinity. And all you need to hear him say is, I will be with you. That's the only words I need to keep going. I will be with you. Even if my mama tells me that everything is going to be all right, even if my daddy tells me and my wife tells me that everything is going to be all right, I just need a word from the Lord that says, I will be with you. When I'm down on my luck, I just need to hear a word from the Lord that says, I will be with you. Is there anybody in this building today that's ready to be repositioned, redirected, realigned for your victory? I just need to hear my master say, I will. That's commitments. That's declaration. I will. I will. That's a promise. That's a covenant. I will be with you. When I hear him say, I'll be with you, that's a sign that I can run through my tribulation. When I hear him say, I'll be with you, that's a sign to keep on pressing through my sickness. When I hear my master say, I will be with you, that's a sign to keep pursuing my destiny. When I hear my master say, I will be with you, that's a sign that I can march on to my deliverance. When I hear my master say, I will be with you, that's a sign I can defeat my depression. When I hear my master say, I will be with you, that's the only sign I need. That's just one more sign that he's still with me. That's just one more sign that he's still carrying me. It's just one more sign that he's still protecting me. It's just one more sign that he's still holding me. Hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on to God's unchanging hands, and he will give you one more sign. Thank God for the signs. Thank God for the signs. The signs help me keep running. God's signs give me hope. God's signs give me peace. God's signs give me victory. God's signs show up right now. I declare, I decree, show someone a sign that would break them from the stronghold. God, show someone a sign that would break the strongholds on their family. God, show one more sign that would give somebody peace right now. Right now. God, do it right now. Right now. If you need one more sign, reach up and get it. 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 I'm going to participate in my deliverance. I'm going to participate in my blessing. I will see the sign, but I will respond to the sign. If God says go left, I'm going left. If God says go right, I'm going right. I'm rolling out with him. I'm rolling out with him because he will see about his own. Give God some praise in this place. Give him a crazy praise in this building. Give him a crazy praise in this building. Say yeah. Say yeah. Say yeah. Say yeah. Say yeah. Ain't the Lord all right? Won't he do it? Won't he do it? Won't he lift up? Won't he lift up a bowed down head? Say yeah. Say yeah. Give God some praise in this building. Come on. Give God some praise in this place. Give him some praise. Give God some praise in this place. One more sign, God. Show me one more sign.